I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Manlius Planning Board meeting. This is for February 10th. First item on our agenda is the approval of our minutes from our meeting on January 27th, 2025. If there's any items for discussion, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Rich, second by Arnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. The next item on our agenda is for an accessory use permit renewal for Thomas Salzberg, an insurance office at 179 West Seneca Street, Manlius, tax map number 106.01-05.0. Before we get started, is there anyone here on behalf of the applicant? Anyone online? Please see online. Okay. According to our codes officer, all paperwork is received in order, and there haven't been any complaints or issues with the property. So the codes officer does recommend an approval for a 7-year renewal. So I would look for a motion for approval unless it's.
I'll make a motion to approve it for 7 years, right?
7 years.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, that's what
Okay.
we've been doing.
Yes. All right. Motion made by Rich, second by Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The accessory use permit is renewed. And then the next item on our agenda is Woodland Hills subdivision. This is on the agenda tonight for a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is for one of the lots in the subdivision, lot 9. This is lot coverage. The lots. Okay. Oh, yeah. Never mind. So they're looking for a variance of 9,111 square feet. So the lot would be 30,889 rather than the 40,000 square feet. And it's one of the 16 lots, one of the proposed 15 existing home that's already on one of the lots. And part of the reason for the variance has to do with the drainage district. The town board is working with them to create, and also where the intermittent stream flows behind the property, and the town needs access through lots 8 and 9. So we get it up. But if any other board member has anything they want to bring up or discuss or any comments or questions.
I would like to bring up a couple of things. So this is now a conforming subdivision. You remember years ago they did come in for a cluster where the lots were going to be smaller. There were some issues primarily with the drainage basins of it. So the lots, if that cluster had gone through, they worked out the drainage stuff. All of the lots would have been much, much smaller.
Yeah.
And there would have been more of them. So now we are substantially reduced on lot numbers. I think there were 21 lots, and now there's basically 16 lots. It's a substantially lower number. It's not unusual in a large subdivision to see 2 lots because of land configuration, where the lots are, you know, right there, where you might have 1 or 2 different in size and different or square footage. So that's just for to think about in this determination. And like we always said, the town board wants to do this drainage district
Rather than HOA.
rather than an HOA. I know some people don't agree with it, but that's so that has decreased the size of the lot, right? Just in that one area.
Well, there's of course hypothetical. non-conforming lots, instead of doing 16, 15, whatever. I thought about that to a degree, but then I look at the total pattern, so it's been suggested, and there are lots that exceed 4 acres, 3 and 4, 121,000 square feet, it's about 2.5 acres. So it's not as if one lot creates, in my mind, that's less than 40,000 creates some anomaly density that I think is troublesome given the overall pattern. So while I thought about developer and one altogether, and also looking at the amount of property within the whole site that has to be dedicated, either not being used to the west, which they don't understand to the town, and contain the drainage systems. So I come to the conclusion that the overall site and how this will play out in the bill can manage one lot, it's less than 40,000 square feet. I wish I'd asked the developer what he expects the square footage of the houses to be built will be, and not. So that would give me a sense of the scope and scale of how this may look like. Where I do the square footage expectations.
But there is a building envelope on each of the lots, so that.
Right, I
there's some-
understand, you see the footprint and the setback requirements, so yes, from a footprint point of view, you're quite right, that information. But in the sense of the overall optical scale of the property, kind of roof lines, kind of framing systems for the roof, has a lot to do with the heights. I don't recall seeing anything regarding optics of the specific houses, the house designs. In any event, I did think about the idea of having non-conforming lots, just reduced by one. But I'm repeating myself, to a degree, the overall site, the lack of density given the overall size of the property, I think it should be limited.
Yeah, and it's still comparable to lot sizes
I
in that area, you know, especially across the street. Along throughout the state. Kind of almost a mirror, would be a mirror development.
Just to clarify, what we have asked in the past is the building envelope, not the footprint. Not the footprint of the building, it's building envelope. Just to so we're clear on that.
Yeah, it's not gonna be the size of
Yeah.
those yellow, whatever color that is, beige, cream,
And,
or not the footprint.
since it came up, I'm gonna give my point of view, which I'm sure will shock several of you. But I just think we're going in the wrong direction with the drainage district as opposed to HOA. The drainage for this site, retention, whatever, is specifically for this site. And to put that cost on other homeowners that might be in that drainage district as expanded or as created, I'm not sure what they're gonna do. I think it's a problem. I think the way we've done it for years, creating HOAs and making them responsible for maintaining the drainage ways, the basins and so on, is the proper way to do it. I think we're going in the wrong direction at this point, but I'll end my
Okay.
spiel at this point.
Doug, do you wanna speak to that? But I mean, again, yeah, the town board has already made the decision for this.
And they can make whatever they want.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to make our decision.
Have any thoughts? No? I'll entertain a motion if everybody's ready.
I did take notes. Do you want me to say the reasoning?
Sure.
Okay. So is there a motion, and then I'll say the reason?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I so
okay, motion
To
to
recommend.
recommend,
To
or
the
no,
ZBA.
okay, positive recommendation? Okay.
And the reasons, thank you, the reasons supporting that, if you want to add this to the motion. This is a conforming subdivision, but for this one lot, so it's substantial compliance. The overall site and the lack of density supports the layout. The building lot behind the lot behind this lot is undeveloped. Comparable, these lots are comparable to lot sizes in this area. The town board has requested the drainage district, which caused the undersized lot.
So the lot behind this lot is under.
Yeah, it's,
Maybe it could be a little different.
well, it's a
Because the
drainage,
lot
it's the
behind it is partly a residential lot
Partial,
existing
yeah,
and
partial
partly,
residential and partial drainage.
maybe just
area.
clarify that somehow.
Okay.
It would be helpful if we back up for a minute, explain why the 40,000 square foot is in the code as it is. It may not be up. May be helpful when the ZBA starts to look at the very substantial variance. A variance of almost 25%. That's not a couple of feet here and there. That's major. So let's ask why 40,000 feet? Anybody know?
Why was it established at 40,000?
An acre, you mean?
Roughly an acre, yeah.
Slightly less than an acre.
You know what, I don't have a direct answer. It's been that for years. Now it's, if you don't have sewer and water, it's 80,000. So where did they come up with 40,000 20, 30, 40 years ago? I'm not sure.
There's also self-sufficiency that already exists. Buying buildings, stuff that development there, I know my friend have beautiful homes. Some of them are less than, quite less than an acre, so I'm not really sure. Like in,
Other residential zones with lower acreage lot issue.
And higher.
And what, is this a matter of habit, aesthetic expectations, that lower housing density created higher housing prices, if certain people on the market has been priced higher, reduced expected low on school districts, I don't know. I have no idea what, because I think 40,000 seems astonishingly large, because my house is maybe, 6,000 square foot lot. Is that, in this day and age, efficient? Is it good? And you might say, well, if you don't think so, then go to an R2 or an R3 to get smaller lots. But
Reason
I have no idea what the town, what history is the town is about 40, other than it made it happen in practice when people did zoning.
I think it's pretty arbitrary. It's a starting point. And I think that what's happened over time, if you watch the way the town is developed, we keep hearing we need more and more housing and less space. Well, somewhere between where we are and 300 unit apartments, is there room to create more houses and fewer acres of land? So I think that
There is, it's called a cluster, which didn't work.
And that's what they tried to do
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But what I'm getting at is, it's not like it was some gold or silver standard
Right.
that we absolutely have to say yes or no to. It's a starting point. It's arbitrary. Somebody, that's why I asked you, Rich, if you were the town board.
Because I'm old. Because I'm old. Yeah.
Institutional methods, that's the kind.
That's my case.
Well, I think because of the nature of, the way the road is to into that subdivision, hooking up with, you can't see with what's on the screen, but tying it to the road across, off of Hook Lane, across the street, so.
Sometimes these things are also based on availability of utilities and infrastructure in general. If there's not sewer and water, then you need more space because you have to have a septic and a well on every lot. So there's other things that, that
Right.
drive
Which
this
is
thing.
structure has improved through the years and
Yeah.
expanded, and, yeah. So we have a motion on the table with those conditions that Amy read. Not conditions, but exceptions, notes.
What do I call it? Reasoning.
So we're gonna change that one just a little bit.
The area, for instance, lot behind lot 9 is in part permanently undeveloped due to the drainage district area. It is partially against other residential. Is that right?
Put it up, put the motion up for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I will vote for this, even though I'm opposed to the subdivision based on the HOA.
Okay, so you're. in
I'm
support of the
okay
positive
with the
recommendation
positive
for the
recommendation.
variance. Okay. All right, motion carries. So, there's a positive recommendation to CBA for the lot coverage for lot 9 for Woodland House. Okay. All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Rich is recusing himself from the next item. Okay, so the next item.
Ernie, you got my recommendation.
Do you have your proxy?
He's got my motion, yes.
Oh, Sharon. Sharon.
Yeah.
Later on. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is, Fawcett's Doggy Daycare, Danielle and Ryan Ewert at 8291 East Seneca Turnpike, Manlius. This is on the agenda this evening for a public hearing, for subdivision, site plan, and special use permit. The tax map number is 099-20-01-27.4. So,
I don't know if you need me to explain anything or just figure out just put that up.
yeah, we'll have a brief presentation so that everyone is on the same page as to what the end goal is here for this project. And then we'll proceed on with the.
So the project involves a subdivision under 1 acre of property from the existing,
So you can put it on the screen.
Yes, I think I'm having difficulties with that, so maybe let's keep going.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So approximately, just a little over 40,000 square foot portion of the parcel will be carved out of a parcel that's a little over 7 acres. It's being done in order to accommodate the doggy daycare facility. On that site are four existing buildings, 2 of which will be relocated. One which will remain, which we were able to get a variance for reduction in side yard setback from 20 to I believe 16. And then the existing storage building for the lawn care business that will remain and become part of the new facility. Building same size, but constructed towards the rear of the property. These 2 uses will share a common driveway, which will have a mutual access agreement, easement for access. And it will involve the addition of parking spaces here for the doggy daycare. Also a new driveway, which will meet New York State DOT standards. The current one's a little narrow. We'll also disconnect here. We're going to disconnect the 2 parcels that are currently connected. And some landscaping, minimal lighting, just not really to maintain on the parking area for safety reasons. There will be an 8-foot high solid wood fence, pen for the dogs or when they're outside. And then this back here will be used for more inside activities on more like winter days and that sort of thing. We'll keep it inside more. The disturbance under an acre, so there's no slip or anything of that sort. We will have a water service connection to the existing water line on 173, and we'll be connected to the sewer line 173 via a small pump station that will serve the 1 bathroom. So
What date is the drawings? I'm sorry to interrupt. What date drawings are you using so I can pull them up?
they say
129? Or 218. 129, they added some stuff for New York State DOT.
129,
No,
218.
218, 1218,
1218.
Yeah. sorry.
We also addressed some of the stuff that the
Is
board
that what
asked.
you have, Lisa?
And such as,
December 9th.
The submission, the folder date is December 9th. Right.
That's the last one.
You can use those. There's not much that's gonna be different. Probably some clearing up a labeling, that sort of thing.
Text boxes all over it.
we also addressed some of the things that the board requested from you. Of the certain buildings, so you can clean up the site, access to, for the fire department for turnaround in the back.
Yep.
So you've worked with us in order to get to this point.
Yeah, we've been, as well as anybody, we've been here I've been here for probably close to a year now. They were here before that. We've gone through an iterative process of development plan that I think addresses a lot of planning board's concerns. Those are some, like I said, two of the buildings going to be relocated here, which primarily serve the daycare center. And then this one here shall be pulled over there. So those will be modified. We've addressed a lot of landscaping issues. That sort of thing. I think, so I think we've come a long way in providing what the board has wanted. About it.
Yeah, and you've been, since you've been here, you guys have been to the ZBA.
Yep.
And you received
Yeah, we received two variances.
two
One
variances.
was for the rear yard setback here to the existing building. And then the other one is for the side yard setback on that existing building. And that's just because if we encroach too far over here, we start having other issues. It's kind of a balance. But those are existing buildings.
Can you tell me what pavement is currently existing on the site?
So I don't have a survey. If you look at the drawings, you'll see a little short dash lines. This driveway here is a little narrower. It's maybe 17, 18 feet wide, and it's all gravel. The gravel comes into here, where there's a fence, and there's a parking area here, and the rest of this is all gravel. This is area of gravel that's gonna be taken out. Where the building is all pretty much gravel, except for this little corner. That's gravel, and it's gonna be taken out and made the lawn. This is part of the outdoor pen. And then this here is gonna be taken out, to the grass, a little sidewalk, landscape. So we are adding a little bit of gravel, and impervious surface, maybe an extra 5,000-6,000 feet the most. All the drainage does flow towards the back, and out. And that's disconnected.
Other questions from the board?
Yes, but I'll wait to go after everybody else has had a chance. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about this project. And we've received a lot of letters from the town. There'll be public hearings still yet to come, right?
Well, yes, right after
Oh,
this.
yeah,
Right, that's what I
We
thought.
have to do secret.
And I went back and looked through my notes. I went back and read things that have transpired before I was part of this board. In June of 2022, the planning board made a negative recommendation for the zone change. I was not on the board at that time, but I've gone back and read everything. Obviously, the zone change went through and we're working with it. We had the kennel issue come up out at Salt Springs, and we learned a little bit about it at Clear Path, I should say. Learned a little bit about that stuff there, and I feel like we need some more information, honestly. Specifically, how many dogs are we talking about? And some of these things were brought up by the letters that we received from the public. Questions that, you know, I feel like we've kind of been asking over and over and getting, you know, yes, getting some answers, and then things would change again as the project changed and
Sure.
gets lost in translation as we move forward with all the different design stuff. But one of the biggest things for me is how many dogs are proposed to be in there. And based on the square footage, you know, what are the governing bodies that regulate this stuff? I tried to do some searching online, and a lot of it's down to the towns or the counties and things like that. But there are some guidelines, not necessarily, I think, that aren't like permitting regulations necessarily. But I have a big concern about, honestly, the dogs being outside. In listening to what goes on at the vet next door, and knowing how dogs are when cars drive by and different things happen, and that it's in a primarily residential area, I'm concerned about the dogs outside and barking. And dogs bark. I mean, it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just dogs, right? And I think it would be really hard to keep track of all that, given the uses that are all going on around it. I don't know if it's fair or humane or anything else to expect the dogs to go here and stay inside all day. If the existing pole barn were used as an indoor play area, I'm concerned about what recourse the community might have if there are problems. Will it become a code, you know, calling code all the time, or a battle of some sort?
So Aaron, not to interrupt, but so part of this besides subdivision and site plan will be, if we go to the next, after, you know, the next step is special use permit. So as a board,
Is this not the right for these?
No,
no,
that's
we can
okay.
discuss them,
We're
but what you were asking, what's the recourse or what can we do? Like,
Yeah,
we can put conditions as the planning board, correct me if I'm wrong, Jean,
Mhm.
as part of the special use permit.
so these are some of the things that
I
I
had some similar questions
would
to,
propose, because they could be limiting factors in the viability of the project.
right,
And so I look at that, I look at the comprehensive plan and what is shown as low density residential, I think it is for right there.
Mixed.
Is it? Trying to, there's already a residence, a landscaping business, and a daycare, like right here. And I don't doubt that there's a desire for this use in the community, and that this applicant has a desire to do it and do it well. But I'm questioning whether this is the right spot for this. It honestly feels like just trying to cram something in that doesn't work that well. And it's been this struggle to try and make it work and how do we do the parking, and how do we do this, and how do we do that, and try and make something work that, as time has gone on, I'm wondering if it's really even appropriate, to be perfectly honest. And I won't go down my list of things right now. But I also have asked, looking back in my notes from the times that it's been here, will there be any overnight? Will there be screening for the headlights? What about signage, lighting? You know, it goes on, and I just don't feel like do you have a photometric plan?
I can give you a photometric plan. That's very easy. It was
I
not
mean,
very many
but
slides.
these are the things we've been asking
We
for.
did give you details. With lighting details, this pump station, the ADA compliance details for parking, pavement cross section, sidewalk cross section, the landscaping plan. If we did not give you a photometric, it's very easy to do, and we'd be happy to do it. The questions you brought up are excellent questions. I'm not even debating them. Okay, the sound is a legitimate question, and we'll be happy to provide you with a sound study, a noise study if you'd like. There are precautions that have taken place on this from day one. Primarily an 8-foot tall solid wood wall, which is a sound barrier.
It is a little bit,
It's quite a bit.
but
It's actually
I
quite a
mean,
bit.
and we've seen these things submitted here. We actually I don't know if everyone was on the board at the time that we learned a lot about this stuff with the Clear Path project.
I don't know anything about
Visited the
Clear Path
site
project.
there and all the stuff, and so I feel like I know enough to know that there's a lot more to it than what we know as lay people and how this stuff works. And, you know, one of the biggest things is how many dogs are we talking about? Because a half a dozen dogs is one thing. 20 dogs is an entirely different
It's probably
story.
about 20
And
dogs.
there's a big responsibility, I feel like, in moving forward with something like this, because there's all of these little animals that
That could vary day to day, like one
It
day you
can-
could have 20
yeah.
dogs, and
Well,
the next day you could
I
have
think
5.
we need to let them answer the question.
I
I'm
agree.
just saying that,
My,
'cause
my, my,
I bring my
dog,
dog to
my-
daycare.
my dog hasn't gone
Yeah.
daycare since December because quite frankly, it's too cold and she's a
Yeah.
little bit too old to be dealing with
Yeah.
being outside in the cold though.
There are some days I bring my dog to daycare and there might be 10 dogs in there, there might be another day that might be 25 dogs.
And some dogs will be inside, some dogs will be outside. It's so,
Always staff at this facility when dogs are there. Is that
oh,
correct?
100%.
There's
Yeah,
always staff.
yeah, 100%.
The barking, I don't know dogs, and the neighborhood dogs bark, they irritate the hell out of me, so I can appreciate the barking issue. But say the times I've gone to a dog park in a big city in Philadelphia, I've done this any number of times, so up at the 50 dogs running around, barking is not prevalent at all.
No, they're playing.
The dog will bark if it's bored, the dog will bark if it's, certain types of traffic. But if there are people there and the dogs are interacting, I'm not saying they won't bark.
It's not the same.
But
It's not the same. It's not the same.
In my experience in dog parks, in a major city, in a park, surrounded by 15-foot townhouses, people of a density 10 times, 20 times what we live in, barking wasn't an issue. And I said, I don't know the dogs, I don't have a particular affection, don't dislike them, but as a resident of the village of Fayetteville, a dog barks, I think it ought to shut its mouth. That's kind of my emotional reaction. But dogs together become a social environment. I'm not saying they don't bark, but you don't get some persistent barking, particularly if there's staff there. We do have in our we have a noise ordinance in this town, and it's 70 decibels, which is not modest during the day, and 50 at night, so there is some control mechanism, but frankly, I don't think we should rely on that. We should rely on how the operators of this respect their neighbors and undertake this business.
You said you wanted to talk about it now?
I can.
Why don't you? Go ahead. Yeah.
So, to pass these out, this is, has some key, key points.
Oh.
That,
I keep losing everything.
and there's nothing different, just a site plan over an aerial. And what you see there are lines which will show you some different general parameters to take into account relative to your neighboring properties, where they stand. So those lines are 100 foot apart. The first one is 100 feet from the fence. Like I said, the fence is 8 feet high, solid wood, which does act as a sound barrier. That fence alone will attenuate the noise approximately 15 decibels. every 10 decibels is half of the sound. So 15 decibels will just about knock off a third of the noise coming out of the pen. Your ordinance is 70 decibels between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., which is basically, if it's open at 7 a.m., that'd be the earliest it'll be open, and it'd be down, no dogs left by 6 o'clock.
How many dogs? I keep asking.
Well,
I really want to know, because I
yeah,
can't
I'm
pick,
gonna say
is it
20.
20 dogs?
Yeah, the project has gotten bigger because we've had basically had another building, which financially makes it that much more burdensome. We do have more space, which is ideal in a lot of respects. So dog daycare, inside the fence, be on average about 70 decibels, because they don't bark nonstop. High max is about 84. Loudest dog ever reported barking, I think, is about 118, and that is a seriously loud dog. 118 decibels is basically you're standing a foot away from a bathtub, which you do not want to do without protection. Doesn't happen. In general, 84 is about the maximum you're going to anticipate seeing inside that pen. 15 decibel reduction, let's say it's not 15, let's say it's only 10, it would still be barely over that 70 decibels. For every 100 feet, first 100 feet, that 84 decibels in 100 feet, this would be without the fence, would be down 50 decibels. So by the time it reached the first home, which is here, which is just barely under 100 feet, it would be 50 decibels.
What does that equate to, 50 decibels? What's the real life example of that?
Quiet conversation around the kitchen table.
Like we're having here, this is a 50 decibel.
Really,
That's
it's
a very
52
quiet one.
decibels, so.
Yeah, but saying generator, it's very quiet. At home, they're very quiet generator.
Well, that's a terrible example.
I know, that's why I tried to-
So
It's one where I know
to put it in perspective, the roadway here is about 65.
Okay,
If I took a measurement out there, I'm gonna say it's gonna be somewhere in the low 60s, mid 60s, in, somewhere between 60 and 70 decibels. I'm gonna say closer to 65. That's your typical 40-mile-an-hour road. They don't add up. So they don't, it's not like you got, I got 65 here and
Right, it
70
doesn't
there,
stack.
and all of a sudden I'm at 150. It doesn't. I mean, those two together might add a couple of decibels to each other.
I know what you mean.
It's weird science. That's just way too many times. So with the fence up, theoretically, we're at 70 at the property.
And code
Is there a shot higher than that once in a while? Is it lower than that a lot of times? Yes. But you're still going to be the average. You're still going to be
So now that it's correct to say a maximum of 20 dogs. That's correct.
Originally, we were thinking 20, we thought maybe 25, I did see it for the photographs of veterans, first hearing, when we did your day hit. I believe it was 15 dogs in a 2-bedroom house, which is much smaller than what we're providing.
Yeah, it's just that, I know Aaron was comparing to that, but we also have to be cautious.
No, I
in
understand.
comparing, only because those are like a training facility, and those dogs are trained not to bark, they're trained, for service, so it's different. And it was like, yeah, it's not primarily residential area, but
My reference,
and I understand what you're referencing, but I also want, this isn't gonna just be whoever drops off their dogs. The Clear Path dogs were vetted through a service, and they were
I guess that
going
would be,
through a certain amount of training just before they even get to that site. So I just wanna,
I guess that would be up to you guys, special permit. Just know that these are not gonna be dogs that are just left out, there's gonna be people the whole time. And the reasoning for the outdoor area is really to exercise and play with them, which gives you a calmer, more relaxed dog. And we do have the inside facility.
right,
So I do know in some instances, the dog daycare, with a special permit, You have the ability to say, hey, they could be outside from this time to this time, they can't be outside at this time. So we're open to,
You have cages and kennels on the inside.
We'll have like little like areas like suites so the dog needs to come in and rest or if they're like overworked.
How many are those?
I think we had 8.
They were removed out of the project.
What?
So we need to see a floor plan.
No, you did. I don't think they were ever removed. I think that.
I just think originally, you guys were really afraid that there was gonna be overnight, and there's gonna be no overnight facilities.
It was,
Okay.
I wrote it down. So no overnight.
No.
And then, will the staff be, because it was 1 to 2 staff, so if there's gonna be 20 to 25 dogs, will there be more than 1 to 2 staff?
2 to 3 people.
So there's so many vague, like, things that are transferred back and forth, like a question, oh, we think this, or we think it'll probably be that, or we'll definitely take care of that, or no worries, don't worry about that. Like, I'm having a really hard time.
We should
Get
know
my head
definite,
around
we should know definite answers by now, I will say.
All right, so what
Yeah, we should have
is it the number of
answers.
dogs?
If stuff has changed since.
They
the
would
application,
like-
we
they would like-
understand, but we should have answers.
So if it's number of dogs, they would like 20 to 25. Hours of operation are within that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. timeframe. Staff is gonna depend on how many dogs are there. I mean, you're not gonna have 3 dogs,
20
and 3
dogs,
staff.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
No,
Six.
6
p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
No, I said it falls within your 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay,
time.
what are your proposed hours of operation?
7 to 6 p.m.
7 a.m. to 6 p.m. 25 dogs, is what you want.
I'm gonna piggyback on Don here, knowing that, like I bring my dog to daycare, and I can walk into that facility and I don't hear any dogs barking.
Correct.
I walk in there and they do not bark. You know when they bark? When they see the trainer go in to get the dog, the other dogs, and they all think it's the dog. It's the only time they bark. But I can stand in the lobby of that and I do not hear dogs. Because they're engaged with the trainers and they're playing, they want that interaction. If they're not getting the attention, then they're gonna probably bark, but if those dogs are playing, and that's how they socialize, they're not gonna bark.
And they're not.
I mean, I'm not saying they're ever not gonna bark, they're gonna be barking, but it's not gonna be dogs outside barking.
It's different than a kind of,
Yeah,
like kennel
different
or
than a kennel,
PCA,
yeah.
where they're like
So,
in a
That said,
cage.
but, okay, so that's your experience with this stuff, and I think that's valuable. But the place you're describing has trainers and all this kind of stuff.
And so
But-
they, not trainers,
I'm-
they have employees, whatever.
Okay, so, but I wanna know these things. If you have 20 dogs, how many staff do you have, and what are their tasks, and what are you doing? Because I don't know any. A little bit, like I said, that we were taught about the regulations from a previous project, which doesn't have that many parallel overlaps. Other than, this is how it works. So, I mean, I don't feel like I have enough information, and I've been struggling with it because maybe I need to go visit some, but I feel like it could really vary because there's no regulation on how each place is run. And I could go visit one that doesn't represent at all the kind of place that they want to do, and that really wouldn't be fair. And so I think that the thing you're describing is ideal. But what is the floor plan with, are there places inside or not? What is this trainer stuff? Like, I mean.
Well, I can talk with Micah. She's not 2 daycares. One is very similar to this. They had an indoor component, outdoor yard. It's not that loud. They're not yelling, barking like crazy or anything like that. Even when you pick them up, you're gonna have 1 or 2 inside barking because if they think their owner's gonna walk through the door at any second. But when they're out in the yard, and the one that we did a stay and play down in Elbridge, it's right next to residences, and there was no complaints whatsoever.
Is it safe
Now,
to say
the
that?
current one she goes to is out in Chittango, and they just run them around for 5 hours up. Yeah, they have a blast. I mean, they send me pictures all the time. They're not barking loud at all. I mean, they're just running around, and jumping into things and that sort of stuff. That's probably a little different scenario than this.
Well, I know they play when they bark when they're playing too, and I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, but
They're
it's not the same
communicating.
bark. It's not like a bark
No, I know
like
the
you're in a
difference.
cage or something.
Yeah, and I know the difference, but is it safe to say that any barking or noise that's happening inside the building is not really something we should be worrying about? Because it's contained within the building and it's really just the noise outside that we should be focused on?
I would say so, unless there's garage doors open, of which there's only one that would be in the back here,
Yeah,
which
is
I can't
another-
imagine is not fenced in.
Which is another thing that we could address in the special use
Yeah,
permit,
Yeah.
like
control how many are out.
when the door, how, I did a little bit of research myself, and some places have regulated as far as height-wise for certain hours of the day.
Yeah, and all those things help
And then that
mitigate
becomes a
that.
code thing and stuff like that too.
Jamie, I got a question. So we've been through this. We know what they're trying to do as operations. Yes, there were things that they changed, but they clarified, let's say $20 to $25. We just went through the noise and it seems to fit in the code. But there's concern in the community that maybe that is going to be more than that. So my question is, if we give them a go-ahead later in special permit and we go for it, can we recommend to the public, what are the things that they have to watch out for and what avenues do they have to do? If all the stuff that we've been told, the noise and the operations goes beyond what actually they told us. Is there a recourse for the surrounding neighbors to take? Is there one?
Yes, I mean, it's a code enforcement matter, so
Okay.
the special permit can be revoked, that's and there would be a complaint filed.
Right.
It would be researched.
Mhm.
If it's found to be valid, then they
Special
can
permit will be withdrawn.
either pull them in, you know, to give them, yes, give them a chance to correct. Or say, yeah, we've got too many dogs and how do we correct it, or depending on what this board negotiates, because that's what that's what the special permit is really a negotiation of how is this going to be made compatible with the neighborhood? Because under the law, it's very important to know that that this use is considered by default compatible, subject to conditions that are going to make it best to fit in with the neighborhood. So it's not like the variance. It's not a variance, right? Where you may not even get it. It's you gotta presume that it's compatible, and then go on with, you know, here are the things that are going to make it the rules of how it's gonna be made compatible. And now there might be an instance where it's like there's nothing that would make it compatible. Would seem unlikely because the town board has already decided that this is the zone where this use can go. So it's more likely that what you're gonna do is have these specific permit conditions.
Okay.
Yeah, where we are trying to help mitigate as much as reasonable any impacts. You know, we're not coming here proposing a chain link fence. We're not, you know, coming here, you know, proposing to not do things to try to mitigate things like noise and visual
No, I
impact.
understand, but what we're trying to do is make sure that the public knows and the neighborhoods know
Yep.
that the special permit is not a blank check for you to do what you want. There's going to be requirements on there, and if these requirements are not met, then there are recourses that can be taken.
Sure.
So that the public will know that we're addressing their concerns, and we're making sure that we put in the special permits the requirements that we expect the facility to meet.
I would suspect that what we're gonna try to do tonight is we're gonna try to go through seeker. I think we can make it through the seeker and go to the public hearing. And there's going to be a lot of public comment. And after that, there's going to be a further discussion in a public forum about, you know, and back and forth, we can even, you know, put it in writing. It would be public for everyone to say, here's some criteria that everyone has come up with. So I think we might be a couple of meetings away if this, you know, goes its course. to see what these, special permit conditions would be. Very,
Thank you, that
And
was
it-
very clear.
right, and it has to be based on, not just, oh, somebody thinks it's gonna be noisy, right? It has to be
Yeah.
based on empirical evidence and fact, and including, if someone said, listen, I went to XYZ daycare and there was nonstop parking, we wanna hear that. Or you wanna hear what, we have a couple people say, listen, that's just not the case. So how do we come up with special permit criteria?
Would it be reasonable to try to find comparable things to visit for those of us who don't know a lot about this?
Perhaps, maybe the words know some.
I'm just throwing it out there. Because we have done those kinds of things in the past. And then knowing that like the number of dogs, I'm concerned about the amount of parking spaces. 25 dogs, that's potentially 25 people coming in.
Yeah.
Right, but if it's reasonable to think perhaps that they're coming in the morning before work, because they want to not leave their dog home all day while they're at work, so they're coming between 7 and 8.
I'm gonna tell you, if I dropped off 7 and 9, by most of them.
I'm not sure, I mean, so it just kind of, my questions just kind of build on each other and.
My daughter takes her dog to a dog daycare, critter sitters, and I think they have probably 80 dogs that go there. And there's never been more than one other car when we go. There's never been.
What?
You text them when you're on the way, I'm coming to pick up so-and-so. When you get there, you text them, I'm here, they bring the dog out, you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I don't,
So
Well,
there's,
some of
there's
them
never-
come on a bus, they pick them up on a bus.
there's never.
Serious, mine gets picked up on a bus.
Yeah.
Generally,
So-
it's a, they're coming, they come out, they hand you the dog. I mean, we can even have a thing where if you don't want it to come into the facility, we can,
Bring them outside
Bring
to
them
them,
out.
so it'd make it a faster transition, so just get the dog right in the car.
would it be possible for us to come up with a list of questions, these kinds of questions and things, and then have them answer them?
I think that was part of what, however you think it's best facilitated.
I'll leave that up to Valerie, but
But I think as we go here, because we are still going to do the public hearing, that's going to formulate.
We might have some more
some
questions.
Yeah, would be,
So I-
that would, a list like that would be ideal.
because that kind of thing is comforting to understand,
I think this time of year too, you're not gonna find any, I mean, critter sitters is different because they do let them go outside.
Yeah.
My facility does not have outdoor, just indoor. So you're not gonna find this kind of hybrid where you have the indoor, outdoor, all the spring or something to see, to compare. Really.
Yeah, the other one we did was Stain Plain Elbridge, and they have a pole barn for indoor, and then they have an outside fenced area. The fence is like it's just a 6-foot stockade fence. I mean, it might be something.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I picked her up there, it wasn't
I think
loud. The planning board, I mean, they expanded, we did an expansion of the planning board, had zero concerns about it.
I think too, just for future meetings, if the existing garage is going to be used, someone mentioned tonight.
Yep.
That the garage is gonna be used for an indoor play area.
Yep.
I think we would need to see that as well, and kind of the material of that for sound reasons. If you mean, a landscaping storage is a lot different than.
Yeah, it's
being
already,
there,
it's
so-
insulated sheetrock, isn't it?
So that, like, knowing,
Yeah.
that would be one of my questions, and
Yeah,
knowing
and the other one will
what
be
that
also.
design, what that material is, what, because we don't know anything
Sure.
about that garage, we haven't talked about it, we've just talked about
Yeah.
proposed.
Yeah, I know, I was like, oh geez, I never got a floor plan for that, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's a floor plan I pulled up from, that was part of the submission for July 22nd, 2024.
Of the new building in the front.
I'm not sure, I think we need to get an
Yep.
updated floor plan, for sure.
the
Of-
whole,
of
yeah.
The whole thing, yeah.
I mean, I know I say this, and I have been keeping drawings from previous submissions, so. But there's been so many back and forths and so many iterations of stuff just to get you know, I think we did get building section, wall set, you know, I think we got that stuff at one point, but is that changed at all, or?
The
No,
only thing.
I just wanna feel
Yeah.
like I'm looking at the right stuff.
The only thing I don't think you've gotten is a floor plan with two buildings together. You've got the new building floor
We
plan,
haven't.
you know, you've got elevations of that.
Where the doors are and the
Yep.
windows and.
Also,
Yeah.
the connection between the driveway wasn't separated, the last one.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have, yeah. And yeah, like the buildings together and doors and everything would be important.
Hmm.
For sure.
Yep, absolutely. And then if we, you know, I'm gonna take notes from public, I read the letters real quick, I just scanned around. So, you know, those are all things that, you know, will help generate questions, you know, neighbors have, and I'm sure that, you know.
So we have to go through seeker.
Yep.
Before the public hearing. And, so we'll do that and then we'll talk about a little more about the letters and we'll.
Okay.
Everybody's ready to go through seeker? Okay. All right, Jamie? Jamie's prepared a little bit, with some of our discussion. Seeker, so the proposed actions herein, which should not be segmented for seeker purposes, are both the subdivision, site plan, and special use permit. This board has reviewed the short form EAF submitted by the applicant, as well as the subdivision, site plan, and special use permit application, and all supporting documentation, as well as the zoning board of appeals variance approval. The board now answers part 2 of the seeker as follows.
So the first question is, will the proposed actions create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
No, let's see. Yeah, I would say, well, we know that the
No,
town
say-
board changed the zone
Right, I'll say no for that.
to RA, and they did get the ZBA approval. So it's restricted agriculture, which is allowed use. So if everybody doesn't have anything to add, I'll lead through
Yes,
this
no,
point for this, okay. The town board rezoned this property from R1 to RA, restricted agriculture, in 2022. And the town board was specifically aware that a potential use would be a dog daycare. The town board determined in the legislative action that the change of zone was the town board in the zone change application. Found that
Repeated words,
yeah,
sorry.
found that the change was appropriate considering the surrounding land uses and the uses that might result from the RA zone. RA would permit the uses already undertaken by the applicants on the property, and they felt bringing the zoning of the property consistent with the area and other properties surrounding the said property. And the proposed further use of the site as a dog daycare and would require approval of a special permit and site plan by the planning board. So the use proposed by the subdivision is an allowable use in this zone for the code with special permit. The special permit will be separately evaluated during the review of special permit to determine those specific criteria, and like we said. Neither the use as presented in the site plan and special use permit application, nor the subdivision is in conflict with the zoning or the recently adopted comprehensive plan. Finally, the zoning board of appeals issued the one minor variance that allows
It's actually
two minor variances that allowed the existing structure to remain in its present location, the existing garage. Accordingly, with the approval of the variance, there's no conflict with any zoning regulation. So therefore, with what we discussed and what I read, there would be no worse, small impact may occur for that answer. Does everyone agree? Okay. All right, so Jamie, what we just do?
Next question is, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
Yes, it's small impact.
So
There's already the existing, I mean, the driveway, the two driveways are already existing. So it's not, they're not adding the driveway.
and there's already a business on there, so
Yeah.
it's pretty small.
And the traffic would turn into the driveways, and we've got the separate driveways, where the business is already in place. But there will be some additional parking.
I think the increase in traffic, because of the intensity of the timing of it, is notable in the small, definition there. Adding an entirely new business, which will need services, brings that to where there's otherwise only residential nearby. That'd be my biggest concern there, but I would still say small.
And there's some non-residential in the area.
Just the vet, right?
That's residential.
But it's still a business.
Yeah.
There's still a business.
Okay.
There's a group home across the
Anyone-
road too.
It's nonprofit,
Well, yeah,
it's a nonprofit or,
residential.
yeah, residential for
Yeah.
residents there.
So, I will read. Anyone else have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Should the subdivision site plan and special use permit be granted, the intensity of the use of the land will change. As is usually the case when new uses and structures are introduced to a site. This parcel, newly created by the subdivision, already has an existing curb cut and driveway which serves an existing home occupation use on the proposed adjacent premises. The structures proposed on the site are within the zoning ordinance setbacks and within the allowable lot coverage of the zoning district. The property to be subdivided is of a reasonable size and conforming to the code at 1 acre, and the increase in the use of that 1 acre parcel is not substantial considering the already existing structure on the site and driveway circulation pattern proposed. The final site plan review and special use permit are pending. Within that process, the planning board has not seen a change in the intensity of the use of the land that is substantial such that the effects would be negative. So I would say the small impact.
Small.
Right, number 3.
That answer, the question is, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
Suppose it depends whether you're living next door or not.
I'm gonna say small.
Yeah, I would say small.
It's certainly not none. Because you're adding another use in.
Yeah, and it's, I would say small, meaning, because the town board has determined that the zoning designation is consistent with the community.
That doesn't
It takes
necessarily mean that in
And again, it's
this
the veterinary
specific
practice
spot
next door.
is okay for that, but just because this zone is where it's allowed doesn't mean that the site is good for it. But I think that under the circumstances, it's not necessarily bad for it either. So small.
Yeah,
How much, footage is between, is on the left, the rest of the Eber property? What's the road frontage?
Oh, I can't remember. There's 150, so it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 450, I would say.
Additional or?
No,
total? So maybe 300?
yep, 296. Just about 450 total.
300 and 150.
Yeah, this is 150. That's, I think, 296 or 286.
okay, so we said small, so I'll read this and see if it really fits with that. The subdivision action will involve a conforming subdivision and allow uses which will not impair character or quality of the existing community, which consists of a veterinary clinic to the east, which is a commercial use, which also involves the care of animals. With the property to the east being commercial, the area is of mixed character, and the corridor is a heavily traveled main corridor with a mix of commercial and residential uses. Other than the residential lot to the west, owned by the applicant, the next residential property are at least 300 feet from this property. The properties across the street are well shielded from impacts of a small commercial enterprise, which will be screened, landscaped, and the main business being setback substantially. Also, the town board has determined that the rezoning that the dog daycare use proposed is generally compatible with this property and area, subject to the special use permit. Special permit criterion is still available, should reasonably limit the minor impacts. So we said small impact.
I would say that, but I wouldn't say that the properties across the street are well shielded from impacts because there's just some low landscaping in front of the building. As far as
There's a hedgerow in the front.
I think
screened, landscaped.
in
There's,
reference though to the fact that this is the main road,
Yeah.
that's what they're talking about, the shield. So the effect of the main road kind of shields what is actually happening. in the process.
There's also a very dense tree line here. And this is a much landscape that's also.
yeah, no,
treated.
it's not that, I've looked at those before, but it's the ones across the road are gonna be having 20 more headlights coming at them in their front windows every time, morning and night.
When they exit.
Garage.
Yeah.
That's their garage.
Well, that one house, but there's a whole bunch of houses across there and there's cars pulling it out. It's just, I mean,
There's two houses.
I'm looking at the aerial photo. You know, I'm not saying it's not fixable, but it's not screened. It's fixable, but I mean, I'm trying to make sure that I'm looking at this very clearly.
But Aaron, I think that, you know, I'm reading this maybe a little bit differently. We're answering the question where it says, the proposed action to compare the character or quality of existing community.
Right.
By character, I'm taking it, is it different than what's existing now? I'm not saying to you there's no impact, I'm simply saying this question talks about character. And I don't think we're changing the character because there are already existing businesses.
Right, no, it's just
And
that,
even on that lot, there's an existing business.
it's just that little paragraph, I don't think.
Which one?
The properties across the street are well shielded from impacts of a small commercial enterprise.
Well, there's a couple ways that they're
Change that.
shielded. The road,
Yeah.
you know, there's quite a bit of distance. And they also, the other properties also have
There's
substantial trees.
substantial trees along the house line as opposed to not along the driveway, which goes to the garage.
Just that one.
I assume which will screen applies to the commercial enterprise, not the houses across the street.
It just needs to be the wording.
So there's some modest vegetation on this photograph, and on the other plans, clearly, we had a good number of conversations about the vegetation.
Yes.
To me,
Let the charge.
the screening is regarding the vegetation in front of the new building to be built, not the houses across the street.
Would it be
Okay,
fair to say the properties across the street are reasonably shielded?
Yeah,
They're
that's
not well
better.
shielded.
I don't think their property, it's not the property across the street, because they're not doing anything. It's this facility on the lot we're talking about provides screening to the, on its property,
Well, that's
within
another,
its project. It reduces the visual impact to adjacent property.
yeah, that's another question,
That's a
another item
different question.
entirely.
We are talking about the character.
It's the way this was written in that normally
you say,
looking at
Aaron?
these things, you
Yeah.
don't really put, honestly, if you don't put a ton of consideration into what's going on across the street unless you're impacting it negatively. Like headlights is really, in my opinion, one of the only things that you really, and signage and light spillage, but it's really light and traffic and that's all. But screening on the property is another thing. So maybe it's just the way it's worded.
So maybe this particular question does not have to do with screening.
Correct.
It just has to do with,
Character.
well, the quality, is the quality, right? Because the quality is, you know,
Well,
what do you see?
Yeah.
And some of that would be, falling under this question would be like, what does the building look like? Does the style of the building fit in with the character of the community and that kind of stuff? And so that's where we would see the elevations and the materials.
Yeah, and, that's it. floor
You get
plan.
yourself into trouble because you didn't submit any of those ones.
Oh, no, we submitted.
This one is,
These were submitted, yeah. These were submitted back in like July.
do you remember? I've never.
I know I saw them when they were submitted, but it was so long ago and there's been so much going on that I would really like to see a current set. Even if it's digital.
Oh, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
That's not a problem. It's basically, it's the exact same building. We'll add the rear onto the floor plan that we provided before. Back here.
So there's currently no little internal suites or individual areas for the dogs. It's just one big open room. That was the last I heard.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think they're developing their plan as we go along.
Okay.
You know, to be honest with you, it's changed also from what they had previously planned. They've got a whole other building they've got to deal with. So, it's, it is what it is. Well, I think we had a colored rendering. I don't know if we submitted a colored one, but we will.
So it's hard to have, where I know we're starting the public hearing tonight, but it's hard for the members of the public to be able to be invited to comment on things that aren't clearly available for comment or known as the current stuff. Like if somebody were to go to the project and click the link, and I know this isn't what you're doing, but you can't ask,
What, on the document center,
right, but you have to sit back.
July 22nd, 2024.
I mean, do you just start going back until you find the most recent version of something? I don't.
Yeah,
The
we-
only person
Typically, we don't
submitted.
resubmit everything over and over again, just because
No,
we're trying not to kill every tree or these.
but a digital, a full set before a public hearing is customary. I'll leave it at that.
I'm just listening to what you're saying. If this sentence is changed to the properties across the street are reasonably shielded from impacts of a small commercial enterprise, period.
Yeah.
Architectural compatibility is part of this project.
Yeah.
Of site plan approval. Mhm. Okay. And then,
All right.
um, also, the town board has determined with the rezoning that the doggy daycare use proposed is generally compatible with this property and area, subject to the special use permit. Special use permit criterion is still available to reasonably limit the impacts.
I think we killed this
Overall,
one.
small
Did
impact,
we kill this one?
small impact on the character, quality basis. Okay, number 3.
Number 4. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of critical environmental area? There is no,
No.
see, no here,
No
so
impact.
that's easy. Number 5. The proposed action result in adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway.
No for mass transit. I would say small for traffic, but again, my kids run, are told not to run along 173 as as members of the cross-country and track teams, because it is so heavily traveled, so I think it would be a small impact in that sense.
I think it would be small as well, but, that's just based on our conversations here tonight with regard to how many units, dogs, visitors, whatever we're talking about.
Well, right, so,
Yeah, I don't think it's.
right, so
moderate.
if, to get to a moderate or large impact on traffic, it is a much higher threshold than
Yeah.
I
seeker.
also don't think we're qualified to make that conclusion. I think that would be something Doug or, state or county owns a road would have to be involved in that. And I think from 25 or less, is that safe for us to be?
There's
Or
the
close.
traffic impact,
Yeah.
when you're looking
It's
at.
minimal.
Negligible?
It's
Negligible.
It's not, it's a nothing, yeah, number 4,
Right.
Small.
seeker person.
I mean, there could be
purposes.
all sorts, there could be any variation in numbers of people traveling to and from the high school on any given day.
Yep.
And that same corridor, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of the users are gonna be people that are already in that,
That's a really good point.
Right.
I mean, and not all. but,
No, that's
you
a
know,
really good point.
Yeah. So I mean, you may have 50%, they're going here, because
Anyway.
they're driving by there as it is.
Yeah.
And typically DOT, we've got good site distance, if we didn't have good site distance, it'd be different. But typically, unless you were way above that, they wouldn't get too excited,
Okay,
you know? Especially because there's no other driveways conflicting, there's no intersections,
right,
you know, it's kind of a clean location for that.
that makes sense.
Okay, so I'll read this one.
Currently, any level service issues out there, even with Enders Road or anything, where there's, cycle wait time falls into class C or less?
Only because parents keep dropping their kids off at
2
school
hours,
instead of putting on the
25 cars,
bus.
just an hour early,
Yeah.
car every 4 minutes or something.
Not at this location. No, I mean, right, if you're down on Henry Road, but that's like 3 miles away.
No, it's like
When
a
the
half a
school
mile
breaks
away.
out, they have police traffic.
Well, Enders Road is actually pretty close.
Yeah, I think.
The west
I go
Doug
to
does
Enders
talk more
Road
about
fairly
that.
often for,
The elementary schools and stuff.
it's a mess on Enders. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Like Greg said.
I don't think there's more material yet.
No,
Okay, so Route 173 is already a heavily traveled corridor. The neighboring business already receives a reasonable level of car traffic for its business veterinary use.
No, we
The
don't.
use is proposed to be for residential pet dogs, so the service on Route 173 would be a very minor impact. We can add that, possibly add about traffic. Meet some of the same people and the school traffic varies. The use is proposed to be, the number of cars that will enter and exit the site will not be substantial in relation to the general traffic in the area, and any in and out will generally be during peak business hours. Mass transit is not affected at all for the service, and any biking or walking along 173 would be minor, if at all, considering the relatively small size of the project, the type of business, and the generally unfriendly nature of the street for biking or walking.
well, so I drive through there almost every day, and there's a lot of kids walking. Biking some, but I see a lot of kids walking from the high school.
This doesn't change the finding that it's an
No.
unfriendly,
I think it's
and
the
people aren't gonna
word,
walk their dogs to the doggy day.
but that's the difference, is it biking for the service and any biking or walking along 173 would be minor, if at all, considering this,
Would be minor for this project. Like,
So that was question 5. Small
Yeah.
impact. Okay, number 6.
No, you had, but I missed the one thing you
Oh,
wanted to add.
Oh,
The local
the
traffic.
local traffic.
there's a
I mean-
potential.
Yeah, we did receive, back in the day, we received 2 different petitions. And there's a lot of local people on there that were in support that would be
Current local traffic,
current local traffic anyway.
may be part of,
Yeah, the
These-
petition was people in support of the facility, and there was 3 dozen or more on there. There was all for it on those petitions.
Yeah.
There was like 3 dozen,
There
was multiple people,
75, so there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a waiting list.
okay, number 6. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy that fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
There's no use of, no use of energy.
No.
So, no, or small impact. Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? There's sufficient
It's small.
public water. Yeah, for our town engineer. Correct.
Yeah, they're connecting to the public water.
So B is, will the proposed action impact existing public or private wastewater treatment utilities? And we know that they are going to connect to public wastewater. And it's across the street. And the sewer capacity can handle it, we've been advised. So no small impact.
If you have a pump, do you have to have a generator?
No.
What happens when the power goes out?
It's all night valve that shuts it off,
Yeah.
so you can't get water in.
No, I mean, the outflow.
There's
Well,
a
you can't
solenoid
go
valve,
and
so
off.
you can't get any water in.
You won't be able to flush the toilet, that's why.
Totally absolutely.
You shut off the out by shutting off the end.
When there's no out, they shut off the end. If you've got it set up properly. Like, so, first the alarm goes off, there's a light that goes off. And like Doug said, typically, and I don't know if it's required by the plumbing code, but it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, so then that'll be connected to a solenoid valve on the just actual water meter that automatically shuts the water off, so you can't flush toilets or run faucets or anything. Then you gotta fix it.
We're gonna go through number 8.
Number 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the
Well, in my case,
historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic
I gotta figure that
resources?
out. I gotta figure that out.
So there are no
Try to get the whole stuff
important historic archaeological resources in or around this site. Architectural compatibility with the area will be addressed in site plan approval, and same has been reviewed to date as generally compatible with the area. There are no significant aesthetic resources that are affected by this project.
No.
Number 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna?
No. No, the relatively small site does not have wetlands, water bodies, or groundwater issues that are affected. There is no air quality issue relating to the site. No significant flora or fauna are affected. Landscaping plan will be included in the final site plan as well. So no impact, or small impact.
Number 10, will the proposed action result in an increase for potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
No, because
The applicant was required to submit the stormwater calculations and the impacts of erosion, which they've done, and all of them found satisfactory by our planning board engineer. So I would say no or small impact.
Number 11, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No. The dog daycare use is not a hazardous use to the environment. There's no evidence that human health would be affected by the use. It's no or small impact for that as well. Okay.
So, a motion? Okay, so,
Okay. So all of the above answers in part 2 of the short form EAF, having been answered no or small impact, this board finds no significant adverse environmental impacts from the subdivision, site plan, or special use permit. Therefore, the board issues a negative secret declaration for the project.
so
The motion made by David for negative secret declaration, second by Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for negative secret declaration. So now we will move on to the process of the public hearing. Before we do, we can take like a 2-minute break. Real quick for anyone to use the restroom or anything before we started. It took quite a while. We have received five letters from residents, 6 total. There was a couple from the same resident. And so we have read, all the board has read through all of those. And so when we do the public hearing, you can address the concerns. We ask just for everybody's sake of time and listening that you keep to new information when you are up at the podium. But we'll take just, we will have a timer of 3 minutes that we ask you to please try to adhere to. So we'll come back in 7:56.
Said I went back in 2020.
that's where I found,
Yeah, that's what
This board.
I wasn't on that.
I know, we're just saying how long this is been going on. And that was after we said no to the board, and then the board changed.
That was when we were asked, or the board was asked for a recommendation on the zone change.
And we had a negative.
And it was negative. And I went back and read what the findings were because I wasn't here. And
Yeah, and actually, if you watch the meeting on YouTube, you can find more. The YouTube link is not minutes.
yeah,
Like,
it's right on the agenda thing where you can. That little TV picture, you know, you get it in there. But yeah, I had to do some digging because
Good for you. Glad you did. We got a lot of stuff in my head.
I just don't understand, but that's a really good point, in that, I mean, Lisa can only write down so much. I mean,
well, it was Allison.
oh, yeah, that's right, it was.
Yeah. She was not.
Restricted agricultural. A cluster of lots for this zoning, it's just sort of defies.
Well, this was the first comprehensive plan. My experience, the first revision is really where you dial it.
But it, when the veterinarian went in, did they go through a zone change, or were they historically RA? When the veterinarian office went in on
Well,
this,
I think that we were,
was it always RA? And then-
my understanding originally was mostly RA.
Right.
And slowly, it became
Because there's even some lots on the south side of 173 that are RA. It's just
Yeah.
inexplicable in a sense.
Well, and then it leaves it up to a judgment of who fits and who doesn't.
Beyond that, the map is being updated.
Well, I found some more, which I cannot reconcile
Yeah.
the coloring of the maps with what's on
It's purposely.
which is on the tax map, which provides zoning and a number of them don't align. I cannot find what's presumably some RA south of 173 just doesn't show up on the tax roll as RA, it's all one.
They don't get updated very quickly.
And the puzzle is, where would you go, where would somebody even know this? That's,
Oh, it's been.
You have to.
but you don't know where to
Most
look, I
recent
mean.
stuff, you have to, I found you talked to the assessor, or the, what's the one?
It is wrong on the assessment.
Assessor's not gonna be a vote, it's gonna be
The assessment roll does not have the either property.
But they
Zone
were the
or-
ones that told me that. I was asking, I
This
there
is
was a question about
this
my
is
house.
the county roll.
And they told me that
I,
it might not be updated online, but it's updated in their system.
well,
So I mean,
online
it's
is the county record system.
County.
It has
It's not always right.
Okay. We are going to proceed with the public hearing. I'll first take a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing. And Lisa, you published
Yes, I did.
public hearing. A motion made by David, second by John. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to waive the reading. And I'll take a motion to open the public hearing. Motion made by John. Second by Judy. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. All right, the public hearing is open. So again, we will, we have a 3-minute timer to try to please keep it concise, and we received letters, like I said, multiple letters from Florzick, Camer, Endress, if I'm saying that right, I apologize if I'm not, a couple letters, and from Ellenberg and Emmons, and from Crow. So again, we've read through all of those as we've received them.
And they are posted.
And they're posted online in the document center for this project as well. Okay, so we'll start with the front row and we'll go back. For anyone who is here that would like to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and your address.
I would like to defer to Dr. Andrews.
Okay. Andrews, sorry for saying your name.
I will follow him, is my point. I'm not giving up my right.
Okay, well, I was starting with the first row, but I'll let you
Thank you.
stick in there a second. Okay.
3 minutes is exceptionally brief period of time, so if I could, instead of my wife's speaking, could I take her 3 minutes as well? Because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, if you're going and it's new information and we're not gonna stop you, we're just trying to keep it flowing and everything.
I mean, some of it is just to get you to understand our practice, which is built and done because it's more of a quiet, more residential neighborhood. And when we do procedures outside, we can't have barking dogs outside. A lot of our animals are critically ill. If you have a struggling cat that's asthmatic and a dog starts barking, that could be enough to kill that cat. A pet bird that's sick, they don't show stillness until they're very sick. You get a barking dog, that could kill that bird. Our driveway is right along the fence line that's on that piece of property. I don't know where the gentleman got his numbers for sound, but the average dog tends to bark 80 to 85 decibels anyway. It goes up to 90 easily and it's really 100 on a regular basis. The highest one's 113. And that fence is not a solid fence. You can see slats in between, so it's not an effective sound barrier. Our property also sits up, so the fence is down here, so sound can go over the property fence and go up. Our bedroom, this is a residence, so yes, there is a business there, but our house is there. Our bedroom is on the side facing that piece of property, just on the other side of the driveway.
So the house that's, it's just behind it, like just behind it.
Just behind it,
That's your residence.
correct.
And is that another barn out back?
It's an old garage
Okay.
from the prior owner. From the property.
And if I may ask, when did you, I know that we're pausing the thing, when did you build that clinic?
We've been there since 2008.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, yeah, let's have them talk and then have questions when each speaker is done.
So, I mean, veterinary medicine is a stressful business, and like any medicine is, it's good to sometimes step away, which is, for us, is stepping outside. Stepping outside in a quiet environment, at least not with other barking dogs and other sort of things. When we built our clinic, we specifically did not put in any boarding, because we did not want the noise to affect our patients at our hospital. We didn't want to have barking that we had to deal with as people, and we didn't want to listen to have neighbors deal with barking as well. So all that we do in the hospital, our hospitalized patients are medical patients. And we have for a period because we need to treat them medically. So that's where they're in the hospital. We don't do boarding for boarding's sake. So that's not an impact of our practice at all. But when we have sick animals, cats can hear better than we can. Cats can hear a dog barking, even if we're inside the building or outside. Dogs can hear it. What do dogs do when people pull in driveways? They bark to let people know they're there. Our driveway for our clients is right by the fence line, about 35 feet away. So every time clients pull in, there's potentially barking dogs. If we have anxious dogs, we have sick animals, that's just gonna make their stress worse. It's gonna make it harder for us to handle those patients in the hospital. Our staff eats lunch in front of the hospital, sitting on the trees by the driveway on the other side. That's not gonna be very comfortable to do if we have barking dogs outside. If one dog barks, there's a natural tendency for that dog to bark more. I'm glad you've got a very quiet experience in the doggy daycare, but that's not the experience of everybody. Kennels can go up to 122 decibels, it's documented. There's scientific evidence that that can happen. I don't know where the sound attenuation came from, but there is an inverse square law that's in the letter there. And every 10 meters is how it was written, so about every 32 feet, the first 10 meters or the first 32 feet, sound drops down 6 decibels. And then it's double after that, so go from 10 to 20, 6 drops. But now you have to go from 20 to 40 to get another 6 drop. So if you're going out there at 40 feet, I'm sorry, 40 meters, which is pushing it out to close to, what, 132 feet, something like that. That's hitting our property pretty loud. And when a dog's barking on the other side of the fence, close to 100 decibels, that's gonna be well over 70 at the fence line. So if you look at the highway department numbers, the big barriers that they put up on the side of the expressways, those knock decibels down by about 10. And they go higher so you don't get the arcing over sound. So that fence with slats that you can see through is not gonna knock it down 15 decibels. That's just a scientific fact. I don't know where those numbers came from, but they're wrong. And a solid wood fence, this got gaps in between, is not gonna do it, and it's not high enough to block sound coming over the top. So our clients are gonna be subjected to that noise, our stressed patients are gonna be subjected to that noise. We're gonna be able to hear the dogs barking in our hospital. So the animals are gonna be stressed out doing that. So what I'm hearing is, you're not taking into any consideration about the health of our patients, the health of the clients, who sometimes are very stressed coming in because their animal is sick, or when they have to say goodbye, if we can do it outside, sometimes that's very preferable. We're not gonna wanna do it outside if there's barking dogs outside. And yes, they may not be barking all the time, but it's not like you can just turn it off for a while and say, I'm gonna do this procedure and be out here for a half hour. No, they're gonna bark whenever they want to. Maybe a delivery person comes next door, maybe a loud noise comes by. This whole property is gonna be such a noise deterrent on my ability to practice medicine the way we've done from 2008. You're telling me that I can't practice medicine the way I have and the way we've gotten our clients coming to, because they're used to coming to a quieter, more homey atmosphere. There's a reason we don't have 12 doctors there. I didn't want to work with a bunch of doctors. We wanted to keep it small, family focused, kind of like the old town doctor, anybody else. We know of our patients, our staff knows our patients. We're not a high volume practice. We're not seeing patients every 10 minutes like some of the veterinary practices do in the corporate practices. No, our average appointment time is 45 minutes to an hour. We don't see that many patients coming in. But when we have sick patients coming in, the last thing they need is the stress of barking dogs. The last thing our clients need is stress of barking dogs. The EPA's got studies that I listed there referencing cardiovascular disease, stress on childhood learning, other sort of things from chronic sound that you're hearing, loud noises on a regular basis. Even if it's not 80 decibels for hearing, chronic exposure to noise is detrimental to health. It's a fact. There's not going to be a daycare center or kennel situation that's going to be quiet. Dogs bark, that's what they do. The USDA regulates spacing for dogs. You're talking about, does anybody require it? And most of the requirements are pretty lax. And to tell you how tight they are, and say a Dalmatian who's 31 inches, by calculations, requires 9 square footage of space. So you could have a 15, let's see. Yeah, we're down here real quick. A 15 square foot facility could, in theory, house 157 Dalmatians. Now, with the track record of having a business, a landscaping business on a residential property from 2008 anyway until 2022 when the zoning was changed, there wasn't any consequences for having a business on a residential property. I find it hard to believe that all of a sudden, if there's 50 dogs there, that there's going to be a hammer coming down and causing problems. I don't know who's going to do the zoning that's going to make the noise issues and things that are going to be there an issue. Why should it be my issue, a neighbor's issue, to police somebody else's business because we're hurting our practice, hurting our health? Why should we have to be the police for that? That's what the whole nature of these planning boards and things should be, is to protect the people who are there. And who's going to get the brunt of it but us? Our house is there. The doggy daycare is here. There's a garage door that opens up. So any noise projected out of the building is going to shoot right towards our house and right towards our driveway and right towards where our staff wants to be, or right where our clients pull in. And that's gonna be well over that 70 threshold at the base. If you can get up to 100 and 122 decibels, that's 30, 40 feet away, is not gonna stop it. And that gappy 8-foot fence is not gonna stop it. From the Department of Transportation, if you wanna do vegetation to stop noise, you need like, what's the numbers here? If you wanna do it with vegetation, once again, you need, you need 30 meters, which is what times 33 is a meter. So 33 times 3 is 99, roughly. That'll, with thick vegetation, you can't see over it, it's wide enough, you can't see through it, decreases sound by 5 decibels. Those sparse trees on our property line with the open underneath, the neighbors with their individual trees that are open wide underneath, sound's gonna penetrate straight and go across straight through. And if somebody's barking back in that pen at 100 decibels, that's gonna travel to the neighbors across the street. It's gonna travel to the group home. Surely it's gonna travel to us. And we're gonna take the brunt of it, because if it comes, it's gonna be right up against our building, right against our home. I see emergencies. Sometimes I'm up all night, sometimes a very short night. How am I supposed to sleep in during the day when our bedroom's right there, listening to barking dogs? Now you're affecting my quality of life because I'm sleep deprived more than what I should be, because I gotta listen to dogs that are barking and I can't go to sleep, or I wake up. Anybody in our family that's there, somebody's homesick, somebody's there, we got barking dogs to contend with. Our health is gonna be affected. So you can look at parameters of, gee, there may not be that many more cars, there may not be something else, but the quality of life that you're projecting us to go down is gonna suffer immensely and suffer our business. We have clients that come here because we're a quiet, calmer practice. We have clients that come here because we do things like euthanize dogs outside. And if anybody's ever put down their dog, you know how emotionally charged that is. And the last thing you want is to have a bunch of dogs start barking in the middle of a procedure, especially if it causes the dog to jerk or cause something else to happen. We do lameness exams outside. Animals are gonna look around at the barking, we're not gonna be able to do our exam very well. So this business that's gonna be stuck on this piece of property without an extra residence or anything, a freestanding business, is gonna impact us tremendously. So I think that's the biggest thing, is the noise, our quality of life, but also the way we practice medicine and the effect of our clients and the effect on our patients. I don't want to have to come to the board and say, hey, can you stop this barking and noise? Because I've lost 2 cats that died because they were very sick coming in, dogs started barking and they died in our parking lot. I don't want distraught clients because something happened to their pet because we brought them here. Birds can die very easily, even just getting transferred to the hospital in a cage. And now you're gonna have them come out, all these animals that are a dog a predator to. That bird could be as good as dead when it walks out the door. And I think that's my biggest concern, is the effect it's gonna have on my business and my livelihood, but the clients that I try to serve. I don't wanna watch patients suffer because of a business that was crammed in this location that doesn't have to be crammed in. Just amazed me that it goes from residential with a business on it to, oh yeah, let's just change the zoning and now let's stick another business on there. Well, we went through the process, there was one business per household that you had on the property. This one didn't have a household on the property. Why is that? Why does that change? My business depends on a quiet environment. My animals' lives depend on a quiet environment. My staff's health depends on a quiet environment, that we can go outside, take breaks on nice weather. To me, that's a huge deterrent.
You have a question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Are you all set?
Yes, I didn't have more, but I probably have time.
Is it new information? Different information?
It would be just expounding on some of the stuff that's there.
First, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for hearing.
This is our job. I'm a very much of a dog. I can, when the dog barks at my house, I have to shut it, because I get upset with it. The planning board does not have the power to change the zoning that is to change. So we have to operate from that step. So we're taking the comments from the public in order to see how we can ameliorate the situation, not to change the zone. Having said that, even though I took some notes, and we're trying to do a special permit to ensure that these notes are, that the fence, it has the slots in it, it's not high enough, all that stuff. I took some notes on it. However, I want to ask you, you said you established a business in 2008. You're looking for a location that is comfortable for the kind of work that you do, a quiet neighborhood, I think is the word that you use.
Correct.
It's on 173. How quiet was it?
It's quieter than a lot of other commercial or other places that were available at the
I mean,
time.
you're right next to the high school where I know I drop my kids off all the time at high school.
We only get noise from the high school football games at night, when it's blaring stuff over the speaker. Otherwise, we don't really hear too much
So
noise.
what's the decibels that you were getting from just the drive on 173 from the cars going back and forth?
Probably the standard traffic noise that would be there.
Right, and I'm saying, so that wasn't bothering the operation enough. I know that this is an added thing, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that it doesn't seem to me like it was a quiet one before this, was it?
Yeah, like I said, if you go in comparison of what's available, and if you look at the general time periods and things that are there, the busiest time is the traffic in the morning when school buses are running. So there's a lot more traffic with school buses, a lot more kids being driven back and forth to school. And then it does kind of temper also the day, but yeah, so there's some trucks and things that go by, there are, but a lot of times it's relatively quiet. I mean, there is some traffic noise, but if you're talking 50 decibels or 60 decibels of traffic noise, as opposed to 80 decibels for the dog barking across, that's a completely different thing. And cats are not prey drive to cars. They hear a car go by, some cats are used to noises of cars. A cat that's never lived with a dog, and a dog starts barking, pupils get big, heart rate starts going. And if it's in a really stressful situation, it may die. We have to watch how we handle cats. Say, taking radiographs, taking other, if they're sick enough, they can die from getting handled. And now you're adding a whole nother level of stress. Pocket pets the same way. Birds the same way, especially birds. Birds are very sensitive.
Thank you for educating.
This is no disrespect, but if a cat is in distress in your vet, at the vet, and a dog is barking within your vet, how is that any different than a dog that's outside barking, or the dog that might be inside your veterinarian for care barking?
We have the benefit of how we schedule our appointments. And if we know we have a sick patient like that in there, we do not schedule dogs that are barking and things. So there's days that we see primarily cats.
So if there's like an emergency, if a dog has to come in for an emergency, and you've got a cat already in there, you're not gonna let a dog come in for their emergency. Now, again, I'm not being
A
disrespectful.
lot of times we call clients and say, hey, can we reschedule this appointment because we have an emergency? I'm only one doctor, so I
Right.
can't see
Two.
3 appointments over a course of, an hour and a half and try to catch up while working on a sick patient. So a lot of times we do stop appointments from coming in until we address and deal with what we have.
Gotcha.
But part of my concern is that animal may not even make it in from the parking lot if it's sick enough because of barking dogs across the street or across the driveway, essentially. They're right there.
So you essentially see one patient at a time then? Is there like a patient in the exam room and then like one waiting and one leaving? or-
One every 45 to an hour, depending on it is.
And
So
it's
we're
just the
seeing a
one.
patient that's there, we see that one. Most of the time, how we try to structure it is we have one patient that's building at a time, most of the time. Sometimes, depending on how long it is, sometimes we will bring a patient in and then discharge the other one separate. But we don't have 4 people in the waiting room. We don't have things stocked up that way. Because once again, we're trying to keep the noise down. We're trying to keep it quiet. We don't want a lot of barking dogs that are there. Our hospital interior is not like a hospital. We did a lot of work to have ventilation control smells.
A lot of people like our hospital because it's more to going into a house than it's going into a hospital. You don't smell disinfectants, you don't smell animal smells. We have separate ventilation in different areas of the hospital to separate that out. So we work very hard, invest a lot of money to separate things out and to make things calmer and quieter. We have more sound. Some of our back rooms do have more sound where the drywall goes all the way up to the top. You know, we have windows, glass is not a good insulator of sound. So if there's a big window someplace, say on the side facing us on the thing, sound's gonna travel through that, especially if the door's open. So we have rooms that we try to break off more, try to mitigate sound as much as we can. We can't do that from our exam rooms and people coming in and everything else because it's too open.
So your exam rooms are on the same side as?
If you look at sterility of the hospital, this is the front of the hospital, this will be the proposed doggy daycare. Our front entrance and our exam rooms are up front. Our hospitalized patients are more in the back and up the side, and they're more isolated. They've got separate ventilation, separate sounds. This is separate ventilation. And isolation, separate ventilation. So everything's kind of walled off, but everything comes up front, and that's gonna be where the noise is. People coming in and out the door, noise is gonna come shooting right in.
Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Enders?
Actually, I had the same question about what if we have dogs at the same time in the building and cats, so. Yeah, I had that question too.
I mean, thank goodness, most of our patients and most of our dogs come in are relatively calm and quiet, so we don't have to worry about that. But if we have certain dogs, once again, since I'm the solo doctor and we know all of our patients, our receptionists know all of our patients, we know how to schedule dogs that might be noisier dogs or put at the end of the day or put at a block where they're gonna be less likely to interfere with something else. So if we know we have sick animals coming in, we'll see those before our known barkers or our known dogs that may be a little bit more ramped up or hyped up. So it's a knowledge of our base. We can control that schedule. We can't control when and how much barking happens outside. And we're not gonna be able to stop the sound. They're not gonna, I mean, like I said, you can put big barriers outside, there's just not enough distance. There's just not enough distance to meet the sound.
I know you said that like, in particular, dog barking is an issue because some of the animals that you see are animals of prey. for
They're
the-
pretty much
for the
all considered
dog.
prey of the
And so
predator
they're
dog, even other dogs.
Natural instincts are for that. What about the current situation and the current noises with traffic in the school and other residential dogs or anything? Do you run into issues?
We pretty much
No.
don't start our appointments till 8:45. So the school, most of the school traffic's done and over with. By the time we start to have them coming in.
And any other like residential dogs that are in the area?
There's an occasional dog that you can hear. It's across the street from the people that have the doggy daycare. The Ebert's dog barks on patient. That's usually a little bit more at night and other kind of stuff. I don't know exactly when all it's there and how much, bark. I'm outside just writing down when dogs bark. Not too much dog barking across the street. I'm sure the group home doesn't have any dogs. The neighbors on the other side have a pretty quiet dog that doesn't do much barking. So we don't hear a lot of barking on a day-to-day basis right now. But that's sort of changes if you have 20, 25, now you got 2 buildings that you can stick 50 dogs in. That could change.
When's your business close?
Our last appointment's at 5 o'clock.
So would it be safe to say 6?
Probably depends. If you don't have an appointment,
Wrap up and
there,
your
but,
staff leaves and all
right,
that.
yeah, by 6, we usually try to get everybody out if possible. Usually earlier if we can. I might be there later making phone calls and doing other things. It depends if we have a sick patient in the hospital, though I'm staying at the hospital. And we're only Monday to Friday. But I see emergencies all during the week, so there may be times in the morning that I try to sleep in. I don't know if the doggy daycare kennel is gonna be running on the weekends at all. There wasn't anything talked about weekends. They just mentioned about the time period, but hopefully weekends are not gonna be on the table. Just because of the personal time, they don't need to listen to barking dogs every day. Plus people, I mean, once again, at some point, may sell the property, and right now it's a residence. And I don't know who the potential buyers are, but we may lose a buyer because we don't have somebody who wants to live next to a kennel and have barking dogs. So I think the value of our property is gonna be negatively impacted by this business being stuck in right next door to us. Just like you get annoyed by dogs barking, a lot of other people do too. Sometimes that means it's not gonna sell.
especially depending what people want to do.
All right, anyone else? Thank you very much for all the
Thank you.
information. Thank you. Is there any, you ready? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Dirk Animal, I represent Paula and her mother. They live to the other side of Ewards. Jamie, I disagree with how you advised your board concerning the legislation here, and I respect you and known you for years, but section 155-12 of your code says that dog kennels, only after issuance of a special permit, are permitted uses. It does not say that it is a compatible use. Section 155-27 says, special use permits are intended to allow for certain uses which are considered on their merits and circumstances which may be permitted, provided that such uses do not adversely affect the neighborhood, including its character, the natural environment, yada, yada, yada. And it goes on to say that such uses are only permitted upon the planning board by permit after the planning board has made an evaluation regarding the compatibility. It's your decision as to whether or not this use is compatible. The town board has not said it's compatible. All the town board has said it's permitted, provided that you find it to be compatible. And I think unfortunately, as you did your resolution and you discussed it, you kind of got this mixed up. I was very pleased to hear your earlier conversation because until this evening, I didn't think this board had any notion to consider the spilling out effect of the noise the barking dogs makes. However, you disappointed me terribly as you went through your seeker resolution with your answer to number 11. And the number 11 question was, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? And what did you just hear from the doctor? You've never considered the impact on human health. And I'm going to suggest to you, you've made a fatal mistake by that resolution tonight. And I'm going to suggest to you, it's correctable. And you should reconsider that resolution, answer it that there is a potential of moderate to large impact that may occur based upon barking dogs and the effect it will have on human health and other areas, which leads you to part 3 of your seeker resolution, where your counsel will advise you that you have a right to inquire and require a study by the applicant, an environmental impact study regarding the impact of barking dogs and how the layout of this site, how the materials that surround it, the vegetation, the fencing, the pole barn. This isn't even a regular house that has studs and I don't know what in the walls. We all know in this day and age, you can make things soundproof if you want to. And you don't know. You haven't looked at it. You haven't studied it. All you've done is taken a cursory look. And that's why I wanted to let the doctor, I knew you had his report. I read it. It's great. Our friend, the engineer, I don't know what his background experience is, I don't know whether he truly is a sound expert, but I think you have the right to require somebody with proper credentials to analyze this use and the site plan, and then make your considered decision as to whether or not this doggy daycare is compatible. My position is, it is not. I think we have a long road ahead, and I think you should be careful how you proceed further. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing, for the record, if I may, we have we did an inventory of the neighborhood. I'd like the record to reflect this document as being an itemization of the uses in the area. This is clearly a solid residential neighborhood, and that must be a very serious consideration for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak?
Could I just address a couple of things
Yes,
that
but
have
it's
been
not-
mentioned?
Cody,
Sure.
sure.
I'll be very brief.
That's okay.
Yeah, just one thing, Erin.
Your name and where you live.
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry, Paula Ellenberg. My mother is Barbara Emmons. I'm the trustee for the trust that owns the Emmons property
Is
at
that the-
8303.
The little white houses next door?
Yeah, yeah, it's a little white house, isn't it? Yeah, they're 110 years old. Just for clarification, they're rather old, which is why they're such an unusual configuration. They don't exist anymore. That kind of family compound doesn't really exist anymore. My parents bought this house back in 1960. We've seen a lot of changes. When I was a kid, back in 1960, Eagle View didn't exist. There was one long hayfield all the way, down to the high school. There was some small part of the high school was there, but it's grown, the whole town of Manlius has gone crazy, it's huge, now compared. But that's where the legacy zoning came from. There was just one long farm, and our houses were part of one of the Hale farms. Yeah, that was a very large farm. It was broken up and subdivided at some point by my great uncle, who kind of made a mess actually. So that's where the legacy zoning comes from. There is, I did that inventory. I prepared the inventory that Mr. Udall just handed to you. And I prepared that inventory from the ongov.net website on the property tab. And yeah, it's all over the place. But what you can have is restricted agricultural with one private residence on it, which is kind of the way it's been for a long time. And when Eagle View came in, of course, we started seeing the residential R1. But that was so hodgepodge. I think there was a planned development behind my mother's property at one time. I think it was the, I forgot, it was a very large family who had planned it, but that failed because they couldn't get water. They couldn't get the water tank. So I think they started zoning it R1 at that time around us. So that's where your legacy comes from. It's not
What do you mean?
necessary.
Can you clarify what you mean about legacy and legacy zoning?
Yeah, well, it goes way back to when we were a farming community. Way back when we were a farming community. My great uncle was Frank Emmons. He had a farm. He owned the property that the Unders have now. That was barns and horses and everything else, which is where all this comes from.
Okay,
That's
so you
what I
mean
mean
like
by
a farming,
legacy.
legacy of
It
farming?
was just
Okay.
original to the area.
Okay, so just want to make sure I understood.
And I don't think, it wasn't kept up with. The assessor's records are odd, to say the least. When you go in and you look at the tax rolls, it's just odd. And so I did that inventory just to show the board that, no, this is a primary residential area. And we're proposing now to add a third business to a property that already has two. And, you know, my original letter to the board said, okay, if this passes, could we please have some common sense restrictions on this thing? And I think that's where you were going tonight. But I think you've got a lot more work to do. I really do. Because, you know, I know Brian Florzik is a neighbor. Lisa Hammer is a new neighbor, brand new neighbor. She was shocked to find out that she just bought a house in June, and now there's a potential commercial activity 2 doors down. She was shocked. So, you know, we move into a residential neighborhood expecting it to stay that way. And yes, we do have a rental property. There's just a little third house there that I only rent one of the houses to the public. It's too crazy to have 2. And so that's really all I wanted to bring up. And of course, the group home that's there, of course, that's nonprofit. I was standing on that front porch the other day. And yes, those headlights are gonna hit. They are. So, you know, watching come out, and the way their front door is positioned right into their dining room. So yeah, those headlights are gonna hit. So that's pretty much it. I spoke to the Vice President, Steve Russell. It's Liberty Resources owns or runs the property. I'm not sure they own the real estate though. I think that's another exemplar. And, you know, so they have 4 people in residence on average. They have 3 now because one lady passed away, but there will never be more than 4. But they are living there. They're residents. They're being cared for. They're special, what we used to call special needs, disabilities. So, yeah, they serve a community function, much the way the vet does, you know. So I think it makes a difference as to what your, I hesitate to call it profit motive because Liberty has no profit motive, just to help people. And it makes a difference on what, you know, no business person goes into business to break even. They're gonna wanna get bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm a CPA. I work with business owners every day of my life, and that's what they do. That's their goal. That's where they want to be. So I'm a little concerned that maybe this might get a little bigger than we hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make one comment.
Yeah, first, is there anyone else here to speak? And Lisa, do we have anyone online? There's nobody online. Okay.
The other comment I have is, don't you find it a little bit odd that none of the surrounding adjacent neighborhoods signed off that this is a good idea, we want this in our neighborhood?
All right. Does the board have any questions before we close the public hearing, or we'll close, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Arnie, second by Judy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries, public hearing is closed. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for speaking. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Or they go, any comments on what we would like to see from here?
I need to come up with a list of questions to share with you. Is that the appropriate?
Yeah, or I think. Yeah. Let's share it, yeah, and then just, Jamie. how
I
do
need
you
to let
do
it
that?
settle and then I need
Just
to.
that, right?
No, to me.
To you, yeah, okay. But not to the rest of it.
No, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's definitely some thought here. I need to sleep on it and then come up with a list of questions. Which I think
Yeah.
I see some key pieces.
Right,
And
if
then-
anyone else on the board has questions, they can also filter them through Doug and Jamie.
So, yeah, so there's gonna be some questions. I mean, the applicant has heard the concerns. So I think the discussion is going to continue with respect to the special use permit specifically.
Yeah, I don't see us responding to all the questions in a like professional manner between now and Wednesday, so.
Oh, I don't have to get our questions, but.
I'm just saying, I'm saying the same thing, but don't think, don't think we're like, we've got work to do, like I said, I'm gonna give you a nice, letter report of the sound and stuff like that. That's just gonna take some time, so, and,
From my point of view, whatever material thought can be put into management of dog barking.
Sure.
I'm extremely sympathetic to having dogs bark nearby you, who you have no control over. They impose themselves on your life. I don't do well with that. I can understand why other people don't. And I do not know if it's like, certain hours outside dogs, and maybe the staff. I also feel my experience, as I mentioned earlier, if they dog barks, dogs don't bark much. But if barking not much and barking some and being extraordinarily irritating to an adjacent property with no mediating mechanism can be extraordinarily frustrating. This business doesn't exist now. Will the world fall apart if it never exists? Probably not. We've been at this for a good long time now. I'd like to achieve a useful result, but some clear process based on experience of other places and knowledgeable understanding how dogs are managed for an impact that minimizes barking influence on adjacent property. I think is essential.
yeah, I'll tell you right now, my plan is, we're gonna take our sound meters, we have at least one other doggy daycare, monitor the sound for at least an hour. We'll see what it comes up at. Other than that, I really just have, written, data on dog barking, decibel levels, attenuation levels with certain things, which is all documented, science-based, but I have no problem taking our sound meters out, or one of them just, I'll talk to Stan Play in Eldridge, which has a similar situation with an outdoor and indoor thing, and, we'll set up there and see what comes up.
Should that be an independent operation, instead of somebody with a potential bias?
I was thinking about that. I'm gonna talk to our engineer, Doug, and see how we should proceed. Yeah, that was the question I had.
So I go into dog parks too, and I find there's a lot of barking at dog parks, but it's happy play barking, not stressful barking, and I appreciate that. But I was wondering if your applicant would entertain having that back barn, it's now a pole barn, be their outdoor area. Because didn't you say that your dog usually goes to an indoor one?
Dog says, an indoor doggy day.
I don't know what that does to the psychology of the point of taking your dog, right, to a
I think it
thing, but
depends on what kind of dog you're taking.
I mean, he's 22 pounds,
Yeah.
I don't want him running
Yeah.
outside of critter sitters, I'd rather have him
Right.
fine.
So, I mean, I think, is that a consideration?
No, and I don't think that's because you're gonna be limiting yourself strictly to certain dogs. So like, I would not send my dog there. Like, I send my dog to critter sitters because, like, not in the wintertime, because they're outside running, it's too cold for her. But in the summertime, I wouldn't send her to a dog daycare because she's an outdoor dog. She goes out and she plays and she gets that stimulation, that exercise. So, now what we're doing is we're really limiting the dogs that are gonna be able to cater to.
So,
Well, maybe this dog at daycare can't accompany all dogs, just like we can't accompany every client in the world.
But we have to, it's it's not the public hearing anymore, so let's.
Sorry.
Sorry. I think that
Thank you.
it's really hard for me to take some of these anecdotal things and use them as bases of making decisions. I like data and facts and studies and stuff, and so if you could provide that type of thing, because I'm sure it's been studied. I would like to base my stuff off of those kinds of things rather than just the handful of people who are brave enough to share in a forum such as this.
I agree 100%. And that's what, you know, right from the get-go, okay? We're gonna give you a sound study, you know.
But not just you guys going out, like, I don't know, Doug can handle that too, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys. We're, you know, if you wanna, you know, if you wanna question my credibility, credentials, ability.
No, I use the equipment myself, I get it, but.
And, you
Yeah,
know,
we'll
yeah,
Well,
but
we
but
will-
I'm
we
just,
will
I'm-
discuss
we-
it.
we-
I will
you know,
tell you this.
I'm gonna do it for my own sake, because we have, you know, I've done studies on enough things. Dogs aren't one of them, okay? But it's easy enough to translate that into a sound study. I've read enough data on it. And I'm gonna go out and take actual measurements of, you know, doggy daycare, what that noise level is inside the fence.
So you haven't actually prepared an acoustics report for dogs before?
What were you gonna say, Jean?
Just that, independent, noise studies are extremely expensive. It would need something that would be passed on to the applicant.
We wouldn't pay for that.
And I'm
I'm
just,
just, these
I,
guys are tapped. I mean, this has been going on for, you know.
I'm just
for-
saying it because people are asking, so I'm gonna say it aloud, but that's,
Yeah, it's a family business.
Yes,
They're trying to,
It's not
you
the
know,
point.
the question is then, what are we presented with and are we satisfied?
Yeah, and it's-
But it does not seem that reading it out, is going to, I don't know. I can't determine right now whether it's appropriate or not, but right now we're.
I would say my
Yeah, I'd like Doug to
recommendation is
look at
let
it.
us come up with your sound
Right.
study and do your independent review. If you don't like it for whatever reason, then you can move forward in whatever way you feel is appropriate from that point.
Is it true that the fence has slats in it?
I have a picture.
You can see maybe have to.
I have a picture.
I know, I mean, you know, could they, you know, when you put up a rough sawn fence, and did it shrink an eighth of an inch or something? Yeah. Now, a slatted fence is something, to me, like, you'll see them where they zigzag,
Right.
you know, a small opening like
What
that
kind
is
is
not going to make the difference, to make drastic measure as far as sound goes.
I have seen, in some of the research I did, just if we're talking, sound, just to throw it out there, down the road. While you're
I know we
doing
should
your
promote
stuff, but I see a lot, there's a lot of dog daycares, et cetera, type businesses out there that will put soundproofing material on the inside of the fence as well, so something to look at if and also soundproofing material, like I mentioned before, in the buildings as well, especially.
Yeah.
My concern would be the pole barn, which is very acoustic, and it could be more, I don't know, so I'd be interested in, the sound
Yeah.
in that type of building too, if there's dogs that can be brought in there and see what that is.
Yep.
or- Yeah,
And you can do all sorts of things like, and just little background, I've done sound studies for everything. Truck terminals, rental places, we design sound stages for movie studios. There's a ton of ways to mitigate sound internally also. The existing pole barn is insulated sheetrock. That automatically knocks that noise down tremendously. Where you would get noise transmitting out is something that you brought up, is, let's say the garage door is open all the way. And you drop that down some, huge impact.
Where's the garage door?
There's
Facing the.
one that's facing the fence. That's where the dogs come in and out,
They're facing the east, the garage door's on the
Yes.
east, that's landscape.
on a new building.
Facing
the west.
The pole barn is directly in back,
Yeah, it's
facing
facing
the
the west,
backwoods.
and the garage door is gonna be, is between the pole barn and the new building.
new building, new garage door faces our apartment.
The garage door,
That's the west.
garage door faces the west, towards the outdoor area.
It's facing the outdoor area where.
To the west. Why do you need a garage door there?
Because you let the dogs in and out that way.
That's very typical, that's what they use for dogs in and out,
Yeah, so
rather than
this
a
is,
regular person. human
so
dog.
this is the side facing
You
the
can't see
bedroom.
it.
And it's got the
Okay.
garage door. Okay, it also has a manual. So if there's no need for dogs going in and out, that door is shut. And the man doors, they're for, call them trainers, you can call them dogs.
Well, there's a difference, so
There is, but there's not training really going on. They're dog sitters, you know what I'm saying, for the most part. I would call dog sitters, the trainers, always gonna train my dog to, sit, behave, and do certain things.
I suppose that depends on.
Any other questions for tonight? Motion made by Marty, second by Judy to adjourn the meeting, all in favor?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.